Assalamu alaikum, students. How are you? Well, I'm fine. Thank you. In the last sitting, we were talking about some areas of mass communication where the message is not very properly understood. You see, there is more likelihood of a message not properly understood in mass communication as compared to other forms of communication. For instance, one-to-one communication, face-to-face communication between fewer people, say among friends. Well, you see, two friends are talking and someone is passing remarks on some point about you. You do not mind it. You do not get into any conflict because you understand the person. You know that your friend is a sort of is a jolly type of a person, and sometime he passes remark, he doesn't mean it. He simply says something. But to draw a negative meaning is not what you believe. It happens when you are in fact having a sort of communication in a not at a mass communication level, but other levels. Even within a classroom, a teacher understands his or her students, their behavior, and if sometime a student does some sort of mischief, teachers generally ignore it, knowing that the student is not a bad student as far as he or she means what she or he says. So it's about teachers. If a teacher passes some remarks, students fully understand there are different types of teachers. But when we come in mass communication, the problem, in fact, is confronted by all the societies. It's not a particular society specific. Most societies, they suffer from sort of a conflict, misunderstanding, misgiving. For instance, you hear a joke from a radio station, from FM channel, very popular these days, these FM channels. You hear a joke from there, and the joke is about a caste. बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं ना, कोई अराई है, कोई शेख है, कोई राजपूत है, कोई पठान है, कोई खान, किस तरह बेशुमार सोसाइटी के अंदर लोगों की डिवीजन जो है वो है. You hear a joke from FM about a caste, and fortunately or unfortunately you belong to the same caste. Maybe other people laugh after hearing the joke, you are very serious and you say, I mean, this is very unfair. Why do people talk about in jokes about referring to my caste? They should find some other way of making people laugh, sort of. In mass communication, this sort of misgiving is very common. Generally, some remedial action is taken when we in fact study mass communication more, and we will talk about this. And as we will talk about more in the coming lectures, we would find more areas where we can avoid a situation where a misgiving is not created. People do not feel offended. Absolutely, it's not possible. Not in the 100% terms, it's not possible. But this is an area in mass communication. For instance, you read something in a newspaper. Now, newspaper is an area of mass communication. Anybody can read a newspaper belonging to any religion, any area, any caste, any city, any country. And you may find that something very wrong has been written about your city, and you don't like this, that people have any misunderstanding about your city. For instance, if there is an article in a newspaper which says that particular city, for instance, they say Karachi is not good for tourism. Well, people living in Karachi may not like this because they want tourists to come to their town. And on some pretext like cleanliness or congestion of traffic or overpopulation, you cannot overrule what lies so much in the city of Karachi. for tourists. There is so much. But if someone writes on this pretext that Karachi is not suitable for tourism, people in Karachi may not like. And if you do the same for the city of Lahore or the most touristic areas like Murree or Sabah, people who have a business over there concerning tourism may not like this. Although the person who is writing is not writing it because of some malintention. उसकी नीयत बुरी नहीं है जो लिख रहा है, लेकिन उसने लिख दिया कि मरी में कोई फायदे नहीं है जाने का, वहाँ तो कोई मज़ा ही नहीं आता सियाहत करने का, वहाँ तो इतनी प्रॉब्लम्स हो गई हैं. Maybe there is a genuine problem. But in the totality of the facts, Murree still remains the most attractive area for tourists. And the people living in Murree who have some business, transportation or hoteling or some other areas where they make some money during the season, I mean the winter when there is snowfall, heavy snowfall, and even in the summer when it's very pleasant as compared to the rest of the country. People have a strong business over there. But if someone creates this in the mass communication as sort of a misgiving that Murree is perhaps not suitable, people in Murree would not like. I'm just giving you one example where mass communication is prone to cause some misunderstandings. And mass communication is so much all around. You listen so many radio stations, you watch so many dramas, talk shows on television, one after the other channel you're finding these days, and so much of a newspaper and magazines and books. Everywhere someone is saying or writing something, and that may cause some conflict. And sometimes when there is already some misunderstanding existing between two nations, we were giving an example last time, the things may get a little out of control. Sometimes a situation may get out of hand, and then the government's involved to just clarify the situation that the person who wrote in a newspaper didn't mean it, or sometimes papers in their editorials, they write sometime, and when some objection is made by, say, some other country, then the newspaper, in fact, gives its position. For instance, there is an incident, a very popular incident a few years ago, when someone wrote about they in fact labeled someone as a dog in Pakistan, some American paper, in their some writings. And there was quite an uproar here in Pakistan that how they think about the people in Pakistan. And what the newspaper wrote after some time, when they heard that the message has not been, according to their understanding, properly understood in Pakistan, they wrote an editorial making a very interesting clarification, saying, well, the mention of dog in American society is taken positively. So what the person wrote in the American newspaper was with a positive mind, which was totally misunderstood in this part of the world. So you see, this is very common in mass communication, because you do not understand all the people around, how they think, what type of what their thinking is, and what their attitude is towards others, towards local people. So there is every likelihood कि कोई ना कोई ऐसी छोटी सी गलतफहमी पैदा हो जाए. मैस कम्युनिकेशन में वैसे तो ये ट्राइब लेवल पे, फैमिली लेवल पे भी बाज़ औक़ात ऐसा हो जाता है. आपने अक्सर सुना होगा कि जब शादी ब्याहों पे, ख़ास तौर पे जब आप अपनी फैमिली से बाहर, और ख़ास तौर से जब आप अपनी जो ज़ात पात की लाइन्स हैं उनसे हट के जब आप बात करते हैं, तो स्टूडेंट्स, आपने कई दफ़ा नोटिस किया होगा कि कई जगह पे ये बात होती है कि जी वो हमारे यहाँ तो ये रस्म नहीं है, वो देखिए जी हमारे यहाँ तो ये रस्म है, सॉर्ट ऑफ. सो यू सी कि ये बात कही गई, ये बात नहीं कहनी, ये बात यूँ नहीं होनी. बिकॉज व्हेन यू go in a higher number of people, you find it very difficult because you do not understand everybody, every tribe, every family. their traditions, their values, the way they talk, what they mean when they say something, or in fact when they have some gesture, you do not understand what it is. Even at the family level, you notice it is a part of daily life. So what to do? The mass communication is unavoidable. For the last, say, 1 century, particularly with the arrival of this electronic media, it was realized when the print media was at its peak, say in the 19th century, but when the electronic media came into this mass communication business, this is more strongly realized that this area of giving misunderstandings, misgivings, and it should not lead to conflict, is realized more by these scholars all around the world who are involved in all the students of communication, I would say. They're very well aware of this area. What to do? Well, when there is a problem, there is always a solution. क्या है वो जो पैदा हुई है कहते हैं हर दर्द की दवा. जब कोई प्रॉब्लम होगा तो उसका कुछ ना कुछ इलाज भी होगा. So, you see, there is some solution. As I said earlier, it's not possible to have 100% solution of this area, but if you take little care, you can avoid giving any misunderstanding to the people who are your listeners or your readers in mass communication. The first is always use a standard language. When you are addressing people of a different society or the people of other societies, other tribes, other areas, as is the case in mass communication. If you are working for instance, if you are working for a newspaper, you should opt to standard language and not slang language. For instance, you may write something in slang language which is very well understood by the people of one society, one area, but the same words sometimes are highly objectionable for the people who have learned a standard language. So when you are in the mass communication area, the best is you do not go in the slang area. If you think that your newspaper has a circulation in areas away from where it is published, or you are on a radio station which is heard, from the feedback you can have very well assessment that your radio station is heard, is listened to in areas quite away from where the broadcasting is done. So is the television. If your television is watched through satellite in very many countries, in different continents, you know this, then the best is you use a standard language, a minimal use of slang words, so that people have a very standard understanding of what is being said. You see, your purpose is to communicate your message effectively. And if you use a standard language, there is more likelihood that what messages you are composing in a language is properly or near to what you mean is understood by the people who are hearing it or reading it in a newspaper, if it is a widely circulated newspaper. And apart from using standard language, there is another area, and that is brevity of language. You should not go into details, writing in detail. Use as little in number, as less numbers of words to express yourself. This is a sort of an expertise, but if the people are there in mass communication, the people who are working, particularly the people who are working for the news section of any mass media, on radio station, on television, or for newspapers, They know this the best, particularly the editors, the sub-editors, the assistant editors, and all the editorial people who are concerned with the news world. They know how to express in a very small number of words the whole idea. So this exercise also helps a lot that the chances of any misgiving or any misunderstanding are also minimized, because people are only going through a very calculated words which stand for certain meaning, and over a period the usage of words for certain activity also strengthen their meaning, and if you are using those words, they pass on the same meaning, because readers or the listeners are now familiar that these words, these phrases, they stand for certain meanings, and they understand it very quickly. That also helps in a healthy communication at the masses level. We call it mass communication. Thirdly, we also have some more to say in this area, that is to know the ethics of different societies. For instance, if you know that your radio station or your television channel is watched in a society which is a plural society, pluralistic society. I mean, there are people from different religions. The TV watchers include Christians, Hindus, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, communist, different people. So if you know the ethics of different people from their living style, it also helps a lot in making the message to be understood very close to what the people who want to send their message across. But if any breach of ethics, for instance, if you pass, just in passing, you mention something about a religion which is offending, and you think, it will have no effect. It's a very popular case, Sometime you might have noticed something is published in the European papers that might have been according to their normal practices. But when their paper come to other societies, there is an uproar, and people start pressing their governments to condemn those governments from where those papers are brought out. This is a very common feature. If you go through the newspapers, you would find more such stories where there is a sort of misunderstanding and a conflict. So you see, if you use a standard language and you go for chosen words, a very calculated lesser number of words, and if you take care of the ethics of different societies where you have the penetration of your mass communication, there are more chances that the mass communication is healthy and people are getting exactly what message you are trying to convey to them by using different technologies to reach out to people at far-flung areas. So much is about what we have been talking about in the last sitting, because this is a very important area in mass communication, the conflict and some solutions. And there we ended last time when we were talking. And today, students, is again a very interesting topic here with us. What effect this communication has on societies? We have to see, when we have talking so much about communication, their patterns, their models, their conflicts, and the usage of different things on communication, we need to understand what effects communication brings about when we indulge in communication, or what is the fun with communication in a society. The foremost is that communication helps us a great deal in discovering different things. Discovery perhaps is the most important thing जो हम ये देखते हैं कि communication से हमें जो चीज़ ملتی ہے, جو ہم سمجھتے ہیں کہ جو پہلا جو ہماری انڈرسٹینڈنگ ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ کمیونیکیشن سے ہمیں ڈسکوری کا بہت ملتا ہے, بیکاز ڈائیورس پرپزز ہیں کمیونیکیشن کا کوئی ایک پرپز تو ہے نہیں. کیا جیسے ڈفرینٹ سبجیکٹس کے بڑے ہی آپ یہ سمجھیے کہ اسپیسیفک آبجیکٹیوز ہوتی ہیں, پرپزز ہوتی ہیں. جیسے آپ میتھس پڑھتے ہیں, آپ صرف میتھس پڑھتے ہیں, آپ کا کام ہے میتھس میں ایکسل کرنا, جتنا زیادہ آپ میتھس کریں گے. اسی طرح جب آپ کیمسٹری پڑھتے ہیں تو آپ کیمسٹری کے بارے میں زیادہ جاننے کی کوشش کرتے ہیں, اس کی اپنے آبجیکٹیو سے. آپ مارکیٹنگ کے بارے میں پڑھتے ہیں, آپ مارکیٹنگ کا اپنا ایک ایریا, آپ اس کے بارے میں پڑھتے ہیں. آپ اس میں جتنا مرضی آپ ہائر ایجوکیشن میں چلے جائیں, آپ مارکیٹنگ میں اپنے آپ کو رکھتے. وہ ایک خاص دو پیرلل لائنز کے اندر آپ اس کو سمجھتے ہیں کہ آپ جیسے مذہب کی بات ہے, جب آپ مذہبی تعلیم حاصل کرتے ہیں تو آپ کی یہ خواہش جو ہے وہ مذہب کے بارے میں ہوتی ہے کہ آپ مذہبی تعلیمات کو حاصل کریں. اسی طرح اور بھی کوئی سبجیکٹ ہو تو ان کا اپنا ایک آپ یہ سمجھیے کہ ریلیٹیولی جو ویژن یا اس کا جو اسپین ہے وہ محدود ہے. لیکن جہاں تک کمیونیکیشن کا معاملہ ہے, کمیونیکیشن کا ایریا اتنا ڈائیورس ہے کہ باقی کے سارے سبجیکٹس جو ہیں وہ کمیونیکیشن میں سموئے ہوئے لگتے ہیں. بعض اوقات ایسا لگتا ہے جیسے آپ میتھس پڑھتے ہیں تو ایسا لگتا ہے جیسے یہ ایک کمیونیکیشن ہی کا ایک حصہ ہے. ایک ٹیچر جو ہے وہ کمیونیکیٹ کر رہے ہیں میتھس کے ڈفرینٹ فارمولاز. اگر کوئی فزکس پڑھائی جا رہی ہے تو ہم یہ سمجھتے ہیں, جیسے جو ہم کمیونیکیشن کے لوگ ہیں ہم یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ یہ ایک چیز کمیونیکیٹ کی جا رہی ہے. اسی طرح جب مذہبی تعلیمات دی جاتی ہیں تو ہم یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ یہ کمیونیکیٹ کی جا رہی ہے. تو کمیونیکیشن کا جو ایریا ہے وہ اسٹوڈینٹس اتنا ڈائیورس ہے کہ کمیونیکیشن کے بغیر یوں لگتا ہے کہ جیسے یونیورس کا سسٹم جو ہے چل ہی نہیں سکتا. ایٹ ٹائمس یو ہیو ویری اسٹرانگ فیلنگ since it's all communication. If you are teaching maths, if you are teaching physics, even if you are learning religion, you are learning anything. It appears at a point to we people, we the students of communication, that perhaps it is all communication. All they are parts of communication. It's so diverse an area we call communication. You have to talk about and understand every bit in this universe. And that is possible only through communication. And that is why we say the foremost area in communication is discovery. Now, what you discover, we're talking about the effects of communication. It helps us in discovering something. What we discover, we can categorize these discoveries into different areas. For instance, we discover physical things. This is through communication. جیسے آپ نے دیکھا کہ one of the oldest civilizations that is there in Pakistan, Mohenjo-daro, some 6,000 years ago, or even little more. The discovery of this civilization was possible in the 19th century, in the 20th century perhaps, in the early 20th century. Through communication, people found something in this area of Sindh province in Pakistan, that there was something unusual, and that was communicated to others. Then came the experts, and they excavated, and they found a whole new world. And then they were telling the world that perhaps one of the oldest civilization is there on the banks of river Indus. There's Harappa later on, but first the Mohenjo-daro. And now, you see, thousands of tourists come to Pakistan only to see these areas. You see, it has brought about a whole change. That was possible only because people communicated to each other about having something over there. And not confined to this historical perspective. When you move around, you go from one city to another, you discover so much. All that is a communication between you and the physical structures around. There's so much communication goes on. And then people are telling other people who have not seen those physical structures And so much is then written and said about all those things. In the discovery area, the next is we discover ideas. We learn about ideas through communication. Had there not been this facility of communication, or had there not been this subject of communication, it would have been very difficult, rather impossible, to make any progress in any sphere of life. On the area of ideas, the ideas are, you have political ideas, you have scientific ideas, you have religious ideas. That is all possible. The growth in those directions is possible only because this effect of communication that takes place, and we share ideas. And you see, in the near history, in the living memory, I would say in the last 1 century or so, so much has been integrated into some reality only by the sharing of ideas from one generation to another. Now, take the example of radio invention. See, the credit goes to Marconi, but if you go to the history of invention of radio, you would find that people have been working in the early part of 19th century. The people gave an idea. They were scientists who had this idea in their mind that there are waves which can carry your voice beyond the normal range of a human voice. And then came another phase when people talked about this electromagnetic activity. They have a pulse and impulse of electricity there, and they found that the result is in the form of some waves. And that generation also passed away. Then came the generation of Marconi and other scientists who continued working on the same ideas. They were communicated, those ideas were communicated to this generation of Marconi. And then it resulted into radio. And we students of communication understand what huge change in mass communication was possible with this invention of radio. This is just one example where ideas which were living in the history books and in the minds and in space. A person is living here and the other person is living miles away, thousands of miles away. And this communication made it possible for them to share their ideas, and that resulted into something which in fact is there to serve the humanity in so many ways. When we talk about organs of mass communication, we also understand that all these areas, they serve the humanity immensely. The people have been benefited more by this mass communication technologies rather than anything else, because that has made possible even all the advancements made in the area of medicine. I would say that's a very touchy area as far as the human life is concerned. But you see, that has been made possible to travel from one institution to another, or from one scientist to another, because of this technology available, what we call technology of mass communication. And mass communication, communication itself has this effect. It helps the societies to integrate their ideas. And thirdly, the major area is a surrounding with which human beings make themselves known to each other, learn from each other, and gain benefits and convert their individual living into a very proper civic society. This is only possible when you learn so many things from your surrounding. For instance, some ideas. For instance, you learn about democracy. You learn about more of globalization these days. You learn more about this information technology from your surrounding, what is going on all around the world. This is what you learn from your surrounding, what is going on right these days. So you are influenced by what is going on in your surrounding through this communication. So what we can conclude here on the first stage that when we talk about mass communication, and when we talk about communication in particular, we find that there is so much that a communication helps to all individuals and society. And not only this area of discovering things is the area of is one effect of communication. Another area which we have noticed, all the experts have noticed, where communication has its effect, is the area of relationship. It's a huge area. You would find that not only the individuals, but societies, tribes, nations, they use this communication, or communication bear this effect on them to have relationship. And if already they have relationship, whenever there is a piece of communication, even between friends, whenever it finds some new dimension of a relationship, it helps to have a new relationship altogether. When you talk to a stranger, you make yourself familiar with a stranger, and that is a beginning of a relationship between two individuals. So is the case with two tribes or two nations. Sometime you would find that a head of state has visited a country where they had never visited. They had never this opportunity of visiting that country. So that is beginning of a new era between the two nations. It is possible. This is only because of what communication makes themselves, make their people available. And as we say, there is more dimension. If there is an existing relationship, you would find that there is more dimension when a piece of communication is made. When you ask someone, how are you? What you are doing actually, in fact, you are strengthening your existing relationship. And when you ask who you are setting up a new relationship. ताल्लुक रखना जो है, ये तो एक कम्युनिकेशन का बहुत ही बड़ा एरिया है, और ताल्लुक जो है वो कई तरह से, कई डायरेक्शन से है. जैसे वो क्या किसी ने कहा कि हम दिल जलों से है, रहे रस्म फलक अभी, इस वास्ते जमीन पे चली आती है चांदनी. रिलेशनशिप अगर आप उसकी यूनिवर्सल एस्पेक्ट को देखते हैं तो शायर जो है, इस केस में जो हमने अभी बात की, उसमें शायर अपना रिलेशनशिप जो है वो एक यूनिवर्सल फैक्ट के साथ एस्टैब्लिश करता है. इट इज पॉसिबल ओनली थ्रू कम्युनिकेशन. कम्युनिकेशन में जैसे हमने ये कहा कि नेशंस को करीब लाने में, और आप ये देख रहे हैं कि ये जो प्रोसेस है एक, जिसमें आप पूरी दुनिया को समझ रहे हैं कि इट इज गेटिंग क्लोज टू ईच अदर. आज से कुछ 100 साल पहले ऐसा नहीं था, जब कम्युनिकेशन इतनी डेवलप नहीं थी, और पर्टिकुलरली आई वुड से मैस कम्युनिकेशन का इतनी ग्रोथ नहीं थी जितनी आजकल है, और पिछली एक सेंचुरी से इसमें एक बहुत ज्यादा इट हैज बीन एक्सेलरेटेड. तो इफेक्ट जो कम्युनिकेशन का वो है कि व्हाट वी आर सीइंग that nations are getting close to each other. Different segments of society, they are finding new relationship. They are strengthening the relationship. For instance, business people, they are finding more these days because of this very effective communication now available to them. And their business is increasing. All around the world you would find business is flourishing because these means of communications. The communication is having this effect on the society, on the business people. And not only the business people, at other areas, for instance, you would find the sporting arena, the area of sports. You would find that more activity of sports is being made possible. More you watch players in action, which was not possible some time ago. You would not find what tennis Grand Slam is going these days. You would not find what test match was going on and how the players were doing over there. And these days, you find it within seconds. In live transmissions, you find what actually happened on the pitch, on the ground. You would find what happened in the last football final, when ZN have some very unfortunate incidents. You find it there. So you see, this communication is also bringing people together. You are having this relationship of knowing each other better in so many aspects. That is one area where, and if we see the history of growth of, I would say, relationship, you also find that in one way or the other, this communication has done tremendously in making people understand other people. Let's go in history for a while. Let's go some 600-700 years ago. You would find Al-Biruni, you would find Ibn Battuta, you would find Marco Polo, and scores of others indeed. What they did, people traveled all around the world. They discovered so much in different societies. And then this tool of communication helped them tell their people what other societies looked like. Marco Polo told about this uncovered China, the world of China. But in Europe, what type of people they were. When Marco Polo made 2 visits to China, then he wrote a book. You see, writing a book is a case of communication. He wrote a book. So did Al-Biruni and Ibn Battuta. They told people around how different societies were doing, shaping. And you see, they also had their bit of bringing people together. Those were the early days when the communication obviously was not like the way we understand this today. But still, since this communication was available to mankind, it had helped we people, the humanity, in a tremendous way. So here, in fact, we were taking a historical aspect of how this has gone. Another area where communication bear a direct effect on the people is to enable them to help each other. Not only to discover things and not only to create new relationships. What you find that because of communication, we have been able to help each other. For instance, if there is a fire at a house, at a building, somewhere, and someone shouts, "Dekhe, aag lag gayi." You see, this small piece of communication does so much to make people aware, and they come to rescue the lives there and the property there and from all around. And not only this very small piece of example would do this, if there is a disaster like tsunami and earthquake as it occurred in Pakistan, the people send messages for help. And the help was then pouring from all around the world. People were there, once they learned by this receiving a message through communication, once they learned that the people were in trouble in some part of the world, the people who generally, as we the human beings are, we have sympathies for each other because we belong to the same family. So much help came from all around, and the rescuers came from, there were different organizations working in this area. They came from all around, set up camps there, and they helped there because a communication was made from these areas which were in some sort of problem. So this is a direct effect of communication on our human lives. And apart from helping each other, a very interesting area students come in having some impression on societies from very different angle. and we call it stimulation. Communication provides a great stimulation in different senses to the people to come up to accomplish some task. And as we talk about stimulation, we have so many areas. For instance, you would find that a teacher talks to a student in a very effective manner, in a very effective communication, that the student must pay some serious attention towards studies. And particularly when a teacher finds in a class that 1, 2, or 3 these students are not paying, they are brilliant, they are talented, but they are not paying proper attention, then the teacher goes for counseling, and they tell the students that if they work hard, they have all the talent. If they work little hard, if they pay some attention, if they are little more focused, they may also be doing as well as other people are doing. And what generally happens, you would find that this piece of communication provides a sort of stimulation to students, and in most cases we find that the students start paying attention to this piece of advice, and then you see all their life is changed. Had there been, they generally say if you find a good teacher, you are a different person. I generally say if I find a person who is doing well in his life, I generally say you must have found a good teacher somewhere in your schooling days or college or in university. It generally happens all around the world. आप अक्सर किसी न किसी उस्ताद से मुतासिर होते हैं, कोई ना कोई उस्ताद जो है वो आपके ऊपर इतना इन्फ्लुएंस रखते हैं. इसको हम ये कहते हैं कि वो स्टिमुलेशन है जो कम्युनिकेशन प्रोवाइड करती है. टीचर आपके साथ सिर्फ एक छोटी सी बात कम्युनिकेट करती है, वो इतना स्टिमुलेट कर देती है आपको कि आप ये डिसाइड कर लेते हैं कि जिस तरह आपसे कहा गया है आपने अकॉर्डिंगली उसको करना है. सिर्फ स्टूडेंट टीचर रिलेशनशिप नहीं, जैसे एक डॉक्टर है, एक डॉक्टर ये उनकी फाइंडिंग है कि आपको कोई किसी किस्म का प्रॉब्लम है, वो आपको अलहदगी में जाके बताते हैं कि आपको अपनी फूड में केयर करनी चाहिए, आपको अपनी लाइफ के बाकी एक्टिविटीज में केयर करनी चाहिए, क्योंकि आपका ये कोई एक प्रॉब्लम है. इस तरह की केयर करने से यू कैन हैव अ वेरी हेल्दी लाइफ. यू सी इट्स अ स्मॉल पीस ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन एंड इट चेंजेस योर लाइफ, और आपका जो सर्वाइवल है वो ज्यादा हो जाता है, और इस तरह से बहुत सारी चीजों से. इसको वी कैन ऑल्सो सी इन अ डिफरेंट वे हाउ दिस स्टिमुलेशन वर्क्स. फॉर इंस्टेंस, if there is some accident and an appeal is made from a radio station for blood, a very pathetic situation is there at the spot of accident, and so many people have been injured and they have been rushed to hospitals, and an appeal is made from a local radio station that blood is required at that. If this is if this is done in a very effective manner, what happens? You would find scores of people at the door of a hospital just there to donate their blood. There are so many organizations which provide this stimulation, a very small piece of communication. And at colleges and universities and at sometimes high schools, you would find blood donation camps. People are donating blood because blood is required at almost all the hospitals, in most surgical operations, you need blood. And then there are patients like thalassemia patients who require it all the time, the change of blood for their survival. You see, this stimulation is provided in a society that a blood is required, और वो blood जो है provide कर दिया जाता है. सिर्फ यहीं पे सिर्फ यही वाले एरियाज नहीं है जिसमें हम करने के, और भी बहुत सारे एरियाज हैं, सोशल लाइफ के बहुत सारे एरियाज हैं स्टूडेंट्स, जहाँ पे हम ये देखते हैं कि कम्युनिकेशन के थ्रू एक ऐसा स्टिमुलेशन प्रोवाइड किया जाता है जो हमारी सोशल लाइफ पे भी असरअंदाज हो. मसलन फर्ज करें कि मार्केट में चीनी की कमी हो गई. अब जो तो प्लानर्स हैं, जैसे गवर्नमेंट के डिफरेंट ڈپارٹمنٹس ہیں, دے آر پلاننگ کہ ہم چینی کی اس کمی کو کیسے دور کریں. کوئی کہہ رہا ہے جی امپورٹ کر لیں, کوئی کہہ رہا ہے جی اس کی جو ایکسپورٹ ہو رہی ہے اس کو روک دیں, کوئی کہہ رہا ہے جی اس کو راشننگ کر دیں. کچھ مختلف قسم کے فارمولے جو ہیں وہ آ رہے ہیں, لیکن نارملی اس میں فٹ ان کم ہی کوئی ہوتا. وہ اگر چینی کی کمی ہے مارکیٹ میں آپ دیکھتے ہیں کہ اس طرح سے ہو رہی ہے. ویئر کمیونیکیشن کین ہیلپ اٹ. If you have a towering leader in your society, if you have a leader who has influence on the people, one small piece of communication from the leader that I request people to curtail use of sugar for 1 month, اس لیڈر کا اتنا افیکٹ ہوگا لوگوں پہ, لوگ کہیں گے کہ اچھا لیڈر نے کہا ہے, فائن, کوئی پلاننگ کسی قسم کی اس کی ضرورت ہی نہیں ہے. لوگ کہیں گے چونکہ ہمارے ایک بہت ہی چیرشڈ لیڈر نے کہا ہے, ہم آج سے چینی کی کنزمپشن جو ہے وہ کم کر دیتے. ونس دی کنزمپشن گوز ڈاؤن سو سبسٹینشیلی, اگر 50% لوگ بھی اس انفلوئنس میں آ کے چینی کی کنزمپشن کو کم کر دیں, اور وہ جو ایکسٹرا یوز کرتے ہیں ادھر ادھر بہت ساری چیزوں میں, اس کو وہ کم کر دیں اس پیشن میں, اس اسٹیمولیشن کی وجہ سے جو کمیونیکیشن پاسبل کیا, تو آپ کیا دیکھتے ہیں کہ چینی ویسی مارکیٹ میں سرپلس ہو جاتی. وہ جو سارے وہ پلان ہیں وہ دھرے رہ جاتے ہیں مختلف گورنمنٹ فنکشنریز کے, کہ اس کی کوئی امپورٹ کو کر لیں, کچھ اور کچھ کر لیں, کوئی اسٹاکسٹ سے بات کر لیں, کوئی شوگر مل والوں سے بات کر لیں. کہاں ہوتی ہیں ان سے بات؟ تو اگر ایک لیڈر ہو اور وہ ایک اسٹیمولیشن پرووائڈ کرے, وچ از کوائٹ پاسبل, اور بہت سارے ایریاز میں اسٹوڈینٹس آپ دیکھتے ہوں گے کہ دس از ویری کامن, ایسا ہوتا ہے بہت ساری سوسائٹیز میں. صرف چینی کی تو ہم نے ایک ایسی مثال لے لی, اور بہت ساری کموڈیٹیز ہوتی ہیں جہاں پہ ہم یہ چیز نوٹس کرتے ہیں کہ اگر کوئی لیڈر ایک اسٹیمولیشن پرووائڈ کرتے ہیں, اس کا بہت اثر ہوتا ہے سوسائٹیز میں. اور کیا ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ اس چیز کے بارے میں اتنا افیکٹو ایک ریزلٹ سامنے آتا ہے, اس اسٹیمولیشن کا ریزلٹ آتا ہے, اور یہ اسٹیمولیشن کمیونیکیشن میکس دس اسٹیمولیشن پاسبل. ایک دفعہ جب یہ اسٹیمولیٹ آپ کسی کو کر لیتے ہیں تو پھر اس کا آپ کو پازیٹیو ریزلٹ آنا شروع ہو جاتا ہے. ویری کامن تھنگ. Apart from these things, as we are talking about effects of communication in society, one very amazing area is that communication provides you a space for relaxation. بہت ساری جگہوں پہ ایسا ہے کہ آپ پریشان ہیں, پریشانیاں تو ہیں, اب دنیا میں جب ہیں تو پریشانی تو ہوگی. آپ پریشان ہیں کسی وجہ سے, کوئی ایسی بات ہے, آپ کیا ہے کہ آپ ایک مزاحیہ ڈرامہ دیکھتے ہیں, آپ وہ مزاحیہ ڈرامہ دیکھتے ہیں, آپ ریلیکس ہو جاتے ہیں. آپ فار دا ٹائم بینگ آپ جو ہے آپ کے ذہن سے وہ الجھنیں ختم ہو جاتی ہیں, اور ایک دفعہ وہ الجھنیں جب ختم ہو جاتی ہیں تو یو آر اگین ان اے گریٹ پوزیشن کہ آپ پھر ساری بات کو غور سے دیکھیں اور اس نتیجے پہ پہنچیں کہ آپ اپنی پریشانی کو ٹیکل کر سکتے ہیں. کیونکہ پریشانی کے اندر رہتے ہوئے اگر آپ پریشانی کے بارے میں سوچ رہے ہیں تو سم ٹائم اٹ از اونلی کمپاؤنڈیڈ, بٹ وین ونس یو آر ریلیکس آپ پھر اس پوزیشن میں آ جاتے ہیں کہ آپ کسی اور اینگل اس کو دیکھ سکیں, آپ اس کو بہتر طور پہ سوچ سکیں, اور کوئی نیا زاویہ ڈھونڈ لیں جس سے آپ کا ہو جائے. آپ پریشان ہیں, آپ ایک کتاب پڑھتے ہیں, ایک اچھی پوئٹری کی کتاب آپ پڑھتے ہیں, یو ریلیکس سو مچ. آپ سارے دن کے تھکے ہوئے ہیں, رات کو سونے سے پہلے آپ ایک اچھی سی پوئٹری کی کتاب آپ کے سراہنے پڑی ہے, آپ پڑھتے ہیں. what all this is all communication, nothing else. آپ کچھ کھا نہیں رہے, آپ کچھ چیز بنا نہیں رہے, آپ کچھ اور کچھ نہیں کر رہے, only you are in the area of communication. آپ ایک کتاب پڑھتے ہیں and you feel so much relaxed. اور آج کل جیسے آپ تو خیر بہت زیادہ کرتے ہوں گے, آپ میچز دیکھتے ہیں, ٹی وی کے اوپر میچ آ رہے ہیں, اور آپ کی اگر فیوریٹ ٹیم جیت رہی ہے تو یو فیل مور ریلیکسڈ. Just watching a match, you feel relaxed. But if your favorite team is winning, your favorite player is winning, آپ کے کوئی ٹینس کے کوئی کھلاڑی ہیں جو آپ چاہتے ہیں کہ یہ جیتے اور وہ جیت رہے ہیں اس ٹینس میچ کو, بڑا ٹینس میچ ہے اور وہ جیت گئے ہیں, تو یو فیل سو مچ ریلیکسڈ. آپ اتنے ریلیکس ہوتے ہیں کہ بعض اوقات آپ کہتے ہیں آئے بھی آج باہر سے کھانا کھانے چلتے ہیں, وہ ہماری ٹیم جیت گئی ہے. یو فیل سو ریلیکسڈ. یہ جو کمیونیکیشن کا ایک ایریا ہے, یہ آپ کو ایک ریلیکسیشن پرووائڈ کرتا ہے اپارٹ فرام ڈسکوری اینڈ ہیونگ ریلیشن شپس اینڈ ہیلپنگ آؤٹ ایچ ادر. ون ویری کلیئرنگ ایریا از جہاں آپ کو یہ ایک ریلیکسیشن کا جو ہے وہ احساس ہوتا ہے. اس کے علاوہ اسٹوڈینٹس جب آپ انوالو ہوتے ہیں اور بہت ساری چیزوں میں کمیونیکیشن کے حوالے سے ہی, جیسے آپ مری چلے جاتے ہیں سیر کے حوالے سے, آپ سیر کرنے چلے جاتے ہیں, آپ یہ دیکھتے ہیں کہ سیر کا بہت مزہ آیا, اور اس طرح بہت ساری چیزوں کا, یہ سارا ایک قسم کا ایک کمیونیکیشن کا ایک ایریا ہے. آپ کا ٹور کرنا, باہر گھومنا پھرنا, یہ ریلیکس کرنا, کیونکہ آپ کو ایک میٹا کمیونیکیشن بھی ہوتی ہے. میٹا کمیونیکیشن ہم پھر کسی وقت اس کو دیکھیں گے, جو ہیومن بینگز اور دوسری چیزوں کے درمیان ہوتی ہے, یا کمیونیکیشن کا کمیونیکیشن جو ہے میٹا کمیونیکیشن. There is a range of things we cover in meta communication. One is between the human beings and the other things. Meta communication میں اس سے بھی آپ کو ایک ریلیکسیشن ہوتی ہے. جب آپ سیر کر رہے ہوتے ہیں, چاہے آپ اکیلے ہوں, کسی کے ساتھ ہوں, تو اگین کمیونیکیشن از گوئنگ آن. اکیلے بھی ہیں تو آپ کی سراؤنڈنگ کے ساتھ ایک کمیونیکیشن جو ہے دیٹ از گوئنگ آن, اینڈ دس از پاسبل اونلی بیکاز آف کمیونیکیشن. اور اب چلتے چلتے آج کی نشست ختم کرنے سے پہلے ایک ٹرم جو ہے اس کو ہم اور سمجھنے کی کوشش. لاسٹ ٹائم وی ور ٹاکنگ اباؤٹ بلاک بکنگ, وچ مینس کہ آپ جو بھی کوئی پروگرام بنا رہے ہیں ریڈیو کے لیے یا ٹی وی کے لیے یا فلم بنا رہے ہیں, آپ ان کی ساری جو پروڈکشن ہے آپ اس کو بک کر لیتے ہیں. ابھی وہ پروگرام بنا نہیں, لیکن آپ کو پتہ چلا کہ یہ پروڈکشن ہو رہی ہے, آپ اس ساری پروڈکشن کو بک کر لیتے ہیں, اور یہ ان ایڈوانس میں ہی کر لیتے ہیں. اف یو آر ڈوئنگ دس, یو آر ان فیکٹ ڈوئنگ بلاک بکنگ. اور آج ہم جس ٹائم کی بات کریں گے دیٹ از بریک آؤٹ باکسز. جب کہ بہت لمبی اسٹوری ہو جاتی ہے اخبار میں, تو اس کے جو امپورٹنٹ پوائنٹس ہوتے ہیں ان کو لے کے اس میں ایک باکس الگ الگ بنا دیے جاتے ہیں. آپ نے بہت دفعہ نوٹس کیا ہوگا, ایک بہت بڑا فیچر ہے, اس کے چھوٹے چھوٹے پھر بلاکس بنا دیے جاتے ہیں تاکہ جو امپورٹنٹ پوائنٹ ہے, آپ کے پاس ٹائم کم ہے تو آپ امپورٹنٹ پوائنٹ جو وہ دیکھ لیں. وی کال دس میس کمیونیکیشن میں, چونکہ ویری کامن, ہم اسے کہتے ہیں بریک آؤٹ باکسز. اینڈ فار دا ڈے آئی تھنک دس مچ از انف. اپنی جو ان کو جو ہے آپ بہت, آئی ہوپ you are having good notes of what we are talking here. Next time we will be here with a new topic and new very interesting things in mass communication. Till then, it's Khuda Hafiz.